August 1, 2007, Minneapolis, Minnesota, 6:05 p.m. Evening rush hour. The I-35W bridge over the Mississippi River carries 140,000 vehicles every day. 8 lanes of traffic. 111 vehicles on the bridge right now. 18 construction workers preparing for a 7 p.m. concrete pour. And then, without warning, the center span separates from the rest of the bridge. It falls. The south section topples 81 feet eastward. 111 vehicles and 18 workers plunged 115 feet into the river and onto the riverbanks below. 13 people die. 145 are injured. Garrett Ebling was driving home from work. He felt everything beneath him give way. He grabbed the steering wheel, slammed his foot on the brake, and then he was falling. When he woke up 3 weeks later in the hospital, every bone in his face was fractured. His colon was partially removed. Traumatic brain injury, broken ribs, shattered ankle. On a scale of 1 to 10 for facial trauma, where most patients score between 3 and 4, Garrett scored a 13. Lindsay Walz was in her car, heading home. Her vehicle immediately filled with murky water. She had to find her way out through closed windows. Pure adrenaline. She swam from the wreckage with a broken back, and didn't feel it until she sat on the remaining bridge section, waiting for help. 5 days in the hospital. But her PTSD became the most invisible and most significant injury. But here's what most people don't know. The bridge was doomed from the day it opened in 1967. National Transportation Safety Board investigators discovered that critical gusset plates connecting bridge beams were only half the required thickness, 12 millimeters instead of 24. A fundamental design error made 40 years earlier. Engineers at Sverdrup Parcel didn't perform all necessary calculations. And for 40 years, 140,000 vehicles crossed that bridge every day. Until the Flaw finally killed 13 people. This is the story of the I-35W bridge collapse, and the design flaw that waited 40 years to strike. The I-35W bridge over the Mississippi River opened in 1967. It was a steel truss arch bridge, 14 lanes total, including shoulders, 8 lanes of Interstate 35W traffic. The bridge connected downtown Minneapolis to the northern suburbs. It was a vital artery. By 2007, it carried 140,000 vehicles every day. The bridge was designed by engineering firm Sverdrup Parcel. It used a deck truss design. The roadway sat on top of steel trusses. The trusses were connected by gusset plates. These are thick steel plates with rivets or bolts. They join multiple structural members at critical connection points. The gusset plates had to handle enormous forces: tension, compression, shear. If a gusset plate fails, the entire structure can collapse. During design, engineers at Sverdrup Parcel made a critical error. They calculated forces for splicing connections, but did not perform all necessary calculations for shearing forces from diagonal and vertical members. The gusset plates at locations U4, U10, and L11 were specified at 12 millimeters thick. They should have been 24 millimeters, half the required thickness. This error was never caught, not during design review, not during construction, not during inspections for 40 years. By 1990, the bridge was rated structurally deficient. This doesn't mean it's unsafe. It means it has elements that need monitoring or repair. The bridge received regular inspections. Inspectors photographed bowing gusset plates years before the collapse. But inspection protocols at the time excluded gusset plates from load rating analyses. No one recognized the danger. The bridge was scheduled for replacement in 2020. It didn't last.
The original construction in the 1960s proceeded without incident, but by 2007, the bridge needed repairs, resurfacing, lighting upgrades. Construction work was scheduled for the summer. Aggregate materials, sand and gravel, were stockpiled on the bridge deck. Heavy construction equipment was positioned. This was routine. Bridges are designed to handle temporary construction loads. On August 1, 2007, construction crews were preparing for a concrete pour scheduled for 7 p.m. By 2:30 p.m., all equipment and materials were in place. The construction load was concentrated on the bridge deck. This created abnormal stress on the already undersized gusset plates. But no one knew the plates were undersized. No one knew the bridge was on the edge of failure. At 6:05 p.m., the bridge was full of rush-hour traffic. 111 vehicles, cars, trucks, a school bus carrying 63 children returning from a water park field trip. 18 construction workers were on the deck. The temperature was warm. Traffic was moving slowly. And then the gusset plate at location U10 failed. The National Transportation Safety Board later determined the sequence. The undersized gusset plate ripped along a line of rivets. The connection failed. The center span, no longer supported, separated from the rest of the structure. It fell into the Mississippi River. The south approach span toppled 81 feet to the east. Vehicles and people plunged 115 feet. Surveillance cameras at the lower St. Anthony Falls Lock and Dam captured the collapse. The footage shows the bridge intact one moment. The next, the center span is gone. The collapse took seconds. 13 seconds, some survivors later said. From stable bridge to catastrophic failure in 13 seconds.
Garrett Ebling was 23 years old. He lived and worked in the southwest suburbs. He almost never crossed the I-35W bridge. But on August 1, 2007, he decided to visit a friend in northeast Minneapolis. He got on the bridge at 6:05 p.m. He remembers gripping the steering wheel, his foot slamming the brake, the sensation of falling, and then nothing. Darkness. Ebling's car fell with the collapsing bridge. When rescuers pulled him from the wreckage, his injuries were catastrophic. Every bone in his face was fractured. His skull was crushed. His colon was partially removed. Broken ribs, shattered ankle, traumatic brain injury. He was placed in a medically induced coma. 18 days later, he woke up in the hospital. His face was unrecognizable. His life had changed forever. The surgeon told him later that his facial trauma score was a 13, on a scale where most patients score between 3 and 4. Ebling spent months in recovery. Physical therapy, surgeries, learning to walk again, learning to eat again. But the physical injuries healed. The psychological ones didn't. Years later, he still struggles. He kept thinking once he could walk again, once he got out of the wheelchair, he would feel better inside. It never happened. Lindsay Walz was heading home from work. She was in her car when the bridge collapsed. The vehicle immediately filled with water. Cold, murky. She couldn't see. She felt for the windows. They were intact, closed. She searched desperately for a way out, and then something gave way. A miracle, she called it later. She escaped through the broken window. She swam through debris. Her back was broken, but she didn't know it. Pure adrenaline. She made it to the remaining section of bridge, sat down, waited for help, and then the pain started. Walz spent 5 days in the hospital, broken back, but the physical injury wasn't the worst part. The PTSD was. She described it as the most invisible but most significant injury. For years, she couldn't drive over bridges without panic, couldn't hear loud noises without flinching. The collapse haunted her, and it still does.
The school bus carrying 63 children ended up resting precariously against the guardrail of the collapsed structure, near a burning semi-trailer truck. Jeremy Hernandez, a 20-year-old staff member on the bus, kicked out the rear emergency exit. He escorted or carried children to safety, one by one, while fire and smoke filled the air. All 63 children survived. Many were injured, but none died. Hernandez became a hero, but he didn't feel like one. He felt lucky and haunted by what could have been. 13 people died that day. Patrick Holmes, 36, from Mounds View. He was on his way home from work. He died instantly. His wife Jennifer heard the news after midnight. Paul Eichstadt, 51, drove a delivery truck for Sara Lee Bakery. He was just beginning his shift. His truck fell forward, burst into flames, and dangled between two sections of concrete. Greg Jolstad, friends called him Jolly. Christina Sakharafis, running late to teach Greek folk dancing. Sadia Sahal, 23, 5 months pregnant, and her 2-year-old daughter, Hannah. They were headed to a relative's house. Vera Peck and her 20-year-old son, Richard Chitt, were traveling together.
They never made it home. The National Transportation Safety Board investigation took over a year. They examined every piece of the wreckage. They reviewed design documents. They ran computer simulations, and they found the smoking gun. The gusset plates at locations U4, U10, and L11 were undersized, 12 millimeters instead of 24, half the required thickness. The designers at Sverdrup and Parcel had failed to perform all necessary calculations. They didn't account for shearing forces from diagonal and vertical members, only splice forces. It was a fundamental error, and it went undetected for 40 years. The National Transportation Safety Board also found that the construction load on August 1st contributed to the collapse. The concentrated weight of equipment and aggregates created additional stress. But even without the construction load, the bridge was doomed. The undersized gusset plates would have failed eventually. It was only a matter of time.
There was no completion for the original bridge, only catastrophic failure. But within days of the collapse, work began on a replacement. Congress immediately authorized $250 million. The new bridge would be designed to modern standards, with redundancy, with safety margins, with lessons learned from the failure. The replacement, I-35W St. Anthony Falls Bridge, opened in September 2008, just 13 months after the collapse. It was built using accelerated bridge construction techniques, prefabricated sections, rapid assembly. The new bridge has 10 lanes. It uses a post-tensioned concrete box girder design, much stronger, much safer. And it includes a memorial, 13 stars embedded in the roadway, one for each person who died. But the lawsuits took years. Survivors and families of victims sued the state of Minnesota, the design firm, the construction companies. Settlements exceeded $250 million. Garrett Ebling received a settlement. So did Lindsay Walz. But no amount of money could undo the trauma. No settlement could bring back the dead. Criminal investigations were launched, but no one was charged. The design error was 40 years old. The engineers who made it were retired or deceased. The state and federal inspectors who missed the Boeing gusset plates followed protocols that were standard at the time. It was a systemic failure, not criminal negligence. At least, that's what prosecutors concluded.
The I-35W bridge collapse changed how America inspects bridges. The Federal Highway Administration updated inspection protocols. Gusset plates are now included in load rating analyses. Bridges rated structurally deficient receive more frequent and detailed inspections. Funding for bridge repair increased, at least temporarily. But the collapse also exposed uncomfortable truths. America's infrastructure is aging. Thousands of bridges are structurally deficient. Budgets are inadequate. Inspections miss critical flaws. And sometimes we wait until disaster strikes before acting. The I-35W bridge was scheduled for replacement in 2020. It collapsed in 2007. 13 people died because we waited too long. Garrett Ebling wrote a book about his experience. Collapsed: A Survivor's Climb from the Wreckage of the I-35W Bridge. He shares his story to help others dealing with trauma. He speaks publicly about invisible injuries, PTSD, depression, the long journey of recovery. He says he still feels like he's finding his feet, but maybe that's the point. To keep learning, keep growing, keep helping others who are struggling. Lindsay Walz also shares her story. She talks about the invisible injuries, the PTSD that lasted longer than the broken back, the panic attacks, the nightmares, the guilt of surviving when others didn't. She wants people to know that trauma doesn't end when the bones heal. It stays, and recovery is ongoing. The families of the 13 victims never got closure. They got settlements, apologies, a memorial, but their loved ones are still gone. And the question remains: why did it take 40 years for the flaw to be discovered? Why weren't the red flags acted upon? Could it have been prevented?
The I-35W bridge collapsed, killed 13 people, injured 145, and exposed a 40-year-old design flaw that should never have existed. Engineers at Sverdrup Parcel didn't perform all necessary calculations. Gusset plates were half the required thickness, and for 40 years, 140,000 vehicles crossed that bridge every day until the flaw finally killed. But here's the uncomfortable truth. It's not just one bridge, it's thousands. Across America, bridges are aging, structurally deficient, waiting for funding, waiting for repairs, waiting for replacement. And sometimes we wait too long. The I-35W bridge was scheduled for replacement in 2020. It collapsed in 2007. How many other bridges are on borrowed time? If you want to uncover more stories of American infrastructure hiding dark secrets, subscribe to Hidden America. Next time, we'll explore the St. Francis Dam collapse in California, where William Mulholland's arrogance killed over 400 people in 1928. We'll investigate the ignored warnings, the unstable rock, and why Mulholland took full responsibility but faced no criminal charges. Subscribe now for more hidden infrastructure stories. And remember, the I-35W bridge taught America a lesson. But we don't always learn until after people die, and sometimes not even then.